Bitcoin is headed to $100,000 per coin, and it's not a question about if, but of when. At least that's what a lot of smart people really seem to think. And the more I research this, the more I begin to understand the thesis behind the $100,000 per coin. I also understand the thesis well beyond $100,000 per coin. I just think it may take 5 to 10 years to get there. But in this video, I'm going to lay out the bull case for Bitcoin and why exactly people are so unbelievably bullish on it. I'm also going to be touching on what the naysayers think and all of the potential risks and downfalls that Bitcoin faces. That way by the end of this video, you're going to be equipped with the knowledge you need for the world of cryptocurrency, and you'll be able to better formulate your own opinion on the future of Bitcoin. Now, for transparency, I do own some Bitcoin, but not a lot. I might own around 10K worth. Most of my crypto assets and investments are actually in Ethereum and Ethereum-based tokens. So I'm not trying to pump my own bags here by any means. I just want to lay out the bull case for Bitcoin. Let's get started. So first off, a bullish case for Bitcoin is certainly not a rarity. JP Morgan's long-term price target for Bitcoin is $146,000. Kathy Wood of ARK Invest is confident that it's going to reach $500,000, and Anthony Pompliano thinks it's going to hit $500,000 by the end of the decade and go on to reach $1 million per coin in the 2030s. Famous Bitcoin maxi and former head of growth at Kraken and Uber, Dan Held, well, he believes Bitcoin could reach $1 million as well, and MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor says that he sees Bitcoin's market value reaching $100 trillion one day, which would value Bitcoin at almost $6 million per coin. Now, where does Saylor get that number? Did he just make it up because he's trying to pump up the price of Bitcoin? Yeah, well, maybe. But he's actually echoing a sentiment by the brilliant cryptographer Hal Finney, who was the recipient of the first ever Bitcoin sent by Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonym used by the person or persons who invented Bitcoin. Finney argues that Bitcoin could become the dominant payment system used throughout the world, and in this scenario, the value of the currency could be equal to the value of all the wealth in the world. He goes on to say that this is estimated in the $100 to $300 trillion range. Today, it looks more like $400 trillion, which would give one Bitcoin the value of around $10 million per coin. So why all of the bullishness on Bitcoin? Well, some of it is obvious, some not so obvious. But before we talk about it, remember that while some of the following is extremely compelling, there are still significant risks to investing in Bitcoin, and I'll be sure to touch on those later in this video. Hold on, everybody. Sorry to interrupt, but just wanted to say, if you like this video, if you're learning something new, please consider liking the video down here somewhere. Leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell. I'm responding to all comments. Love hearing what you guys think, whether positive or negative. So if you could do that for me, I'd really appreciate it. Back to the video. The number one most compelling bull case for Bitcoin is that it is the perfect store of value. And a store of value, according to Investopedia, is essentially an asset, commodity, or currency that can be saved, retrieved, and exchanged in the future without deteriorating in value. In other words, to enter this category, the item acquired should, over time, either be worth the same or more. And there's a lot of examples of a store of value. Money, that's your cash, a fiat currency like USD, gold, real estate, stocks and bonds are the most common, but there are many other examples. There's trading cards, gemstones, collectibles like fine wine, antiques, postage stamps, etc. I mean, there's art, watches, livestock, the list goes on and on. What makes a good store of value? So ideally, a store of value should be durable, portable, fungible, verifiable, divisible, scarce, censorship resistant, and it should have an established history. So let's go through this visual comparing Bitcoin to these other stores of value. Durability. So gold and other precious metals like diamonds, right now they're the kings of durability. Cash is no good, and it's not because it can be ripped or burned, but it's because the institutions that issue the cash, like governments, they come and go. For Bitcoin, there is no central institution, but the network, although it has withstood consistent fierce attacks from hackers, is not 100% bulletproof. Some suggest, and it's hotly debated, that a 4,000 qubit quantum computer could, in theory, crack Bitcoin's encryption in the future. Also, the hard drive you may have your BTC on and your private keys also have some obvious durability issues. Portability. Bitcoin is the most portable store of value by far. You can have $1 billion worth of Bitcoin on a little hard drive. Try moving $1 billion worth of gold. Fungibility. Gold wins here again. So if you were to melt down a gold bar, an ounce of that gold is indistinguishable from any other ounce of gold. Bitcoins are currently not considered as fungible as gold because the network protocol isn't completely private or anonymous. So a particular Bitcoin could, in theory, become tainted. Verifiability. Just about anything can be counterfeit. Even fiat currency and gold, although it's extremely difficult to do so, it can be counterfeited. But Bitcoin is cryptographically generated, so it can be verified with mathematical certainty. Divisibility. Bitcoin reigns supreme here, as well as it can be divided down to one Satoshi, which is 100 millionth of one Bitcoin. Bitcoin is also the king of scarcity. See, only 21 million Bitcoins can ever be created. Currently around 18.5 million Bitcoin have been mined, and since it gets exponentially more difficult to do so, the 21st millionth and final Bitcoin should be mined at around the year 2140. Also, if you take into account all of the Bitcoin that have been lost or burned over the years, like this poor guy who threw out a hard drive back in 2013 containing around 7,500 Bitcoins, it becomes even more scarce. Now, established history. This is where Bitcoin faces a weakness, so it should be considered as a risk. Now, Bitcoin has faced multiple 70 to 90% drops in value over the years and has weathered all attacks. So the likelihood is that it will not disappear as a valued asset anytime soon, but it is impossible to predict the future. And finally, censorship resistant. Now, this is one of the most desirable aspects of Bitcoin. It's completely decentralized. No one owns it. No one single entity can or will be able to ever control it, which segues us into another compelling reason why people are so bullish on Bitcoin: autonomy. A digital currency such as Bitcoin offers the user more control over their money without dealing with a central authority such as a bank or a government. There's also discretion. Buying something with Bitcoin is discreet, and although not 100% private or untraceable, but unless you voluntarily publish your Bitcoin transaction, your purchases will never be associated with your identity, like buying something with cash. No banking fees. This is a big one because you aren't dealing with a central authority. There's no fee to pay for account maintenance. There's no overdraft charges. There's no charges for remittance payments, wire transfers, nothing. And additionally, transferring Bitcoin, while it's not instant, is a lot faster than having to wait for 3 days for a bank to clear your payment. Accessibility. As long as you have Wi-Fi in a device, you can transact with Bitcoin, so it makes it available to people without access to a traditional banking system in the world, which is in the hundreds of millions. That is really, really important. Okay, so some also argue that Bitcoin is far more than just a store of value. As we mentioned, Hal Finney predicted earlier that Bitcoin would become the best medium of exchange and that it could become the world's currency. Now listen, there's a lot of risks of investing in Bitcoin, a lot. There's theft, cybercrime, fraud, future regulation, and the list goes on and on and on. It's a highly, highly speculative investment. And as we've all seen, crypto is incredibly volatile. So you have to have a bit of an appetite and a bit of a stomach for this high risk, high reward type of speculative asset. Now, should you buy Bitcoin today? Well, at the time of recording, Bitcoin's sitting at around $19,000 per coin. Now, this is not financial advice, but my answer would be yes, only if you have the appetite and the stomach for high risk, high reward speculative assets. Only if the cash that you would be investing into Bitcoin and any other crypto for that matter is cash that you do not need in the next 3 to 5 years. If it's cash that you're comfortable storing for 5-10 years plus into the future, me personally, I would say yes. I do believe in, and I have a lot of conviction in the future of Bitcoin. Now, the general recommendation for crypto is to make it 1 to 5% of your portfolio. When I first started investing into crypto, it represented around 2% of my portfolio. It then ballooned during the crazy bull run to about 30-35% of my portfolio. I think now it's back down to about 15 to 20%. For most people, that's probably way more exposure to crypto than what's generally considered safe, reasonable, or responsible. But for me, I'm happy with my allocation the way it is right now. I'm not going to rebalance it. And the reason why is just I have a lot of conviction into the future of the space. I also have a reasonably strong tolerance for risk. So I'm good at around 20%. So should you invest in Bitcoin? Well, that's a question you just have to answer for yourself. What's your personal situation? What's your personal finance situation? What's your risk tolerance? What's your conviction level, etc.? I am not equipped to make that decision for you, but hopefully by watching this video, you are now equipped with the knowledge to make a little bit better of a decision than you were just 15 minutes ago. So as always, really appreciate you watching. Thanks for rocking with me. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.